for your biblical and sacred book scholars, it is stated that the Word becomes flesh, and He will dwell among you. Well, family, He is dwelling among us now, and I want you to all pay attention and listen. You know, you are basically the chosen, the blessed, and the fortunate ones that get to hear what He has to say. Not everybody gets to hear what He has to say, and some of you have even seen Him in the truth or in the flesh, just like I have. You know, not everybody can say that either. And you are truly the last generation before the new beginning. And there is going to be a new beginning, so be thankful and grateful always to the Most High God for giving us this opportunity and being alive during this time, in this era, instead of any other era. So you all asked for a Savior, and here He is. You asked for Him, and He is here. He is not going anywhere, just like He said, until everything is finished. Okay? And God may not always be in time for you, but He is always on time. Okay? So God may not always come when you want Him to, but He's not there to necessarily to be your servant. You're supposed to be there to serve Him and be obedient to, you know, the thoughts He puts in your head. Obviously, as long as they're good thoughts. So all of you have to pay attention to your inner self and remember that, you know, you didn't come out of thin air. You were created, or you were born into this flesh, and someone had a making in that, and it wasn't you. Now, Prince Charles has been working towards this global agenda since he was born, for the most part. As a matter of fact, he said also during his interview on 2011, he is a direct descendant of Dracula. That should give everybody something to be concerned about, especially when he's talking about Vlad the Impaler. Okay? And for all of you who do not know who he is, okay, he was a prince back in the 1400s. His name was Vlad Dracula. And that is, you know, the prince of modern-day Romania, okay, or ruler of Transylvania. But Vlad Dracula was the impaler, and basically he impaled all his enemies, his victims, and he even drank their blood, okay? So this guy was not a very nice guy, to say the least. And well, family, with that, you know, if Dr. Henderson, if you're ready, sir, I'd like to yield the call to you.
I'm rising and shining. I want to say to you, gracias. I also want to say that it's been a great Cinco de Mayo day. I would say it's been beautiful. I want to say to you, thank you for a job well done. And that is what you've done today, based upon the fact that you did do some research. You did look into what Cinco de Mayo really is all about, and how it came about, and how it came to be. And I want you to understand that I purposely had you to do that for a reason, because I wanted you to recognize the fact that they're claiming a fight that took place between a huge would-be army of people from France that was fighting against a nation called Mexico. But I need you to understand it goes deeper than that. It's much more than that in which you have found, because they've only given you what they wanted you to find. They didn't want you to find out the true truth. And I want to carry on that journey, if I might, for a brief moment. I want to first say welcome to the call, everyone who's listening. Rise and shine. This is the call that we call the United States call. We have designated it as the United States call because these are the people that are least informed, and at the same time, they are being informed as we so speak, and they still are those who are rejecting the truth. They reject facts, and thereby they kind of just go along to get along. And that's one of the reasons I wanted my brother to go on this small journey of mine with me based upon Cinco de Mayo. Cinco de Mayo is a very common phrase when used in the United States of America, based upon the fact that these Frenchmen that they're classifying to be a huge large army of Frenchmen that were fighting against the would-be Mexican army were also those that were fighting in something that they called the French-American War. They were because you're on a journey now of learning about true history. A lot of you that have attended school inside of what we call the United States of America, you have been carried on a journey of nothing more than misdirection. If we might use that at the least term, you've been carried on a journey whereby they led you away from the truth rather than to the truth. Which they have a book that's been written by a guy by the last name of Lowen. Lowen, he wrote a book which is titled The History and the Lies That My History Teachers Taught Me. And he purposely put that out there at a time where people were learning history in America, but the history just so happened to be nothing more than lies in which a few guys got together that was building a monetary system to take over the world, and they were the ones who were able to at least publish these would-be so-called lies in which they were making up. And everyone purchased them. They purchased them in their Barnes and Nobles. They purchased them in their would-be so-called neighborhood bookstores. And none of those stories held the total truth to them. But there's a truth that even, I would say, it resides deeper in the people in whom are on the planet, such as one that's known as Prince Philip, which he is quickly placing himself in a position to become some would-be so-called king of a monarch, knowing that a monarch is illegal everywhere and anywhere on the planet, and any other planet is illegal. Monarchism, monotheism, I would call it, because it kind of comes back to a religion rather than just a people. Now, as King Charles, that they would give him the title is claiming, as you've heard our brother here, our host, Brother Mark, he's letting you know that this same king that they're going to be crowning within the next few days has already himself, he has admitted to being one of many would-be relatives of Dracula. Now, that kind of brings up a problem for everyone on the planet, and everyone, especially that are Caucasian, Caucasian, or should we classify them to be white people? Because Dracula was not a white man. Dracula would have destroyed you at night as he would have done during his time of existence. That's how he became one in which they called him the night fighter or the fighter of the night, because he only killed and destroyed at night. And it was better suitable for him because it was hard for people to be able to recognize him on scene, especially when he was dressed in black. He was black-skinned, and thereby he would have been one of the would-be early known to the world as a ninja soldier, because he wore black, he was black, and he fought at night. Now, all these things are easily now to be read by those scholars of the world who knows the truth already. They're not questioning this. They have a movie that they came out with in the last few years. They call it The Black Knight. And they know that that Black Knight was really black. When looking at Batman, they came and praised the movie called Dark Knight. And they knew that that knight was also a melanated, dark-skinned individual. Now, no, not everyone on the planet was black. They wouldn't be Caucasian, Caucasian, angry white people, Karens. Just stay with me for a moment. I'm not attacking you, but I need you to understand that the truth that you carry is not truth at all. It's a straight-up lie. And even though your grandfathers and grandmothers would have classified it as a little white lie, it wasn't so little. And it wasn't just a little lie. It was totally changing the truth. Not bending it, changing it. To a point where it would suit them, even though they knew that at some point in time, everyone was going to come to know the truth. And it would only be a matter of time before they refined themselves right back where they started from, in the mountains, in the gutters, and underground. They already knew this. So Prince Charles, King Charles, whatever name you want to give him, title that you want to refer upon him right now, you have to understand that he's claiming to come out of the Muslims or the Muslims, or he claims to be a descendant of Muhammad. Impossible, because Muhammad was a black man as well. He was dark-skinned, melanated. Not only was he, but his wife was melanated. Not only was she, but her daddy and mother was melanated. Where I'm headed with this is King George III, which somehow they adopted a name for him, calling him some would-be so-called, if we call him William the Great, and began to change his name from William the Fourth, William the Third, William the Fifth. And by that time, they finally got him to one where they could deem it to be close enough to be a relative to Queen Elizabeth. But she understands, too, that those men that she have claimed, King Edward the First, King Edward the Third, that they had a last name. Edward would have been their first name. Their last name was Henry. And she knew that to get away from the name Henry was the quickest thing they could do. That's what they call the Knights of the Round Table, when Arthur himself decided that he was going to destroy his father's name, which was Henry. And Merlin was very much a magic genius, not by way of being able to cast spells, but he was the one that was able to bring about this great lie, which the whole world began to carry as a would-be token of agreement that they all were under. I'm just giving you a brief history of the truth. This is easily found even in your history books, because you have to start reading back when they actually began to print things. And you realize that if these people were dark, melanated skin, at what point did they find themselves pearly white and out of sight? At what point did that happen? Well, we know that the French themselves will tell you that one known as Toussaint, one of the great would-be so-called princes of France, Toussaint was melanated. He was a melanated being. Everyone knows that. They know that these people in whom now present themselves as the white people, the Caucasians and the Caucasians of the world, that's why they're having so great a problem with those people like the Russians. Like Vladimir Putin, he claims his true heritage. He lets everyone know that his grandfather, who was a real true-blooded Russian, was a melanated being. He's not afraid to tell anyone that. They have came up and tried to interpret what he said and change it in a manner where they're saying that he said that he was not from a melanated would-be bloodline. That's not true. You would have to understand Russian and its purity, not that Russian in which America find themselves being interpreters of, because they never interpret what the people are truly saying. That's all the way to the people when they're giving their last dying wish or their last dying right, such as Saddam Hussein, such as one known as Gaddafi. He was one of those that America interpreted what he was saying when he was dying, and their interpretation of what he said is totally opposite of what he said. Saddam Hussein also in his dying right, he made a confession. He made a statement. And by way of the interpretation of America, you would have thought that he was asking America for his forgiveness or for their forgiveness, knowing that he was actually telling them just how deep they were embedded with the devil and how only until now that the devil would root them out and they would be destroyed off the planet. He told them that in the true interpretation of what he said. But America has changed interpretations now for at least 250 years. And that's their own admittance to their existence. Knowing that they have been around now for about 700 years, they came along with the would-be so-called world of the monarchism. They came along with that. The French that were fighting in the United States of America during the American and French and American War, was that war that it kind of bleeded or bled over into what was known as Mexico. Why? Because a lot of the people that were in Mexico were from what is known as America now. It's known as America. They were there. And they were pushed back to the borders of Mexico, and thereby all of the Indians began to migrate there. We're talking Indians based upon the Mexicans, those that were mixed with Africans. Yes, they were there because they were a mixture of those that came out of the land of which now is known as the United States of America. So Cinco de Mayo, being May the 5th, has a lot to do with the 5th day being of grace, and the month being 05 as well gives them double grace. Stay with me. God Almighty. These are the things for which now the so-called would-be Vatican already knows about. Believe it or not, every time Pope Paul sits down in a communion, he begins to speak in a Latin tongue. That Latin tongue has a lot to do with the Spanish language in which now everyone speaks. He knows that to speak in that tongue would have been almost demonic at one time. I'm talking about the Spanish tongue, because he knew that it was actually taking the place of the Latin tongue, which was being written out of the world or written out of history based upon the fact that the Latinos were those that were also melanated, dark-skinned people. That's why when you go to these foreign nations, you find those people that are there speaking Spanish of very dark colors. And when going to Puerto Rico, which is Puerto Ricans, are nothing more than part of an African based upon being a Puerto Rican, they are all telling jokes and laughing about it. But they know that the fact remains that the reason those statements were made is because it was reality and it was truth. And they did so much to laugh it out of existence until now. And you get a lot of comedians standing on stages that are making these comments and they're laughing. Many of them, they have been to foreign nations. They've been to foreign countries. And they have read about it. They have seen pictures. They have been to those places in which a lot of you have only dreamed of. They've been to all the would-be so-called Canterburys. I've been there. They've been to the Canterbury Cathedral. They've been there. I've been there. They've been to what we know to be Brussels, France. Over in France, they've been on the English Channel. They've been out on the English Sea. They've been to all these places. They've been on the Rhine River. And all of these things, they know the facts remain that there were dark-skinned, melanated people that were there first. They already know. And now we're looking back at some so-called would-be Viking that they bring about, saying the Vikings were around some 45,000 years ago. The thing that they don't want the Vikings now to know is that at one time the Vikings were also dark, melanated people. Stay with me. I know. It is so now. It's so important for the people that are known as white people to understand the truth, because they're being eliminated by the day, not only by someone killing you off. Stop wanting to always grab your gun. Stop always wanting to fill it full of gunpowder and go out and blow up everybody. Let me tell you how you're losing yourself. Because right now, the majority of your daughters and sons, they have black children sitting at your breakfast table. They have black children sitting at your would-be so-called dinner table. They have black children coming in and out, getting snacks all during the day while you're sitting there sniveling and being angry because your daughter, your son decided to marry outside of your race. Stay with me. I'm not attacking you, but I need you to understand this is the very way you came into existence. Your fathers decided that they were going to go outside of their race and they were going to start mixing with other white people, and that's how you became so white. They were me. I'm just giving it to you facts. And so now that their children have really come to reality of truth, realizing, wow, if I came from that, how can I get back? I can't get back, but I can tell you what I can do. I can help my children to grow up and go back to where they initially came from. And that will give me the ability to be able to right what has been wrong by my fathers. I'm just giving it to you facts. I know. I got a lot of angry white men out there now with me. Matter of fact, I had one that was talking to me just recently where he says that he goes himself to pick up the food for his daughter. She kind of orders and she don't leave the house, and he comes to different would-be so-called supermarkets to pick it up for and pick up points, such as Walmart's and all those locations. And he asked me the question, what did I think about that? And I told him I don't. As a matter of fact, I have to get you to understand that once upon a time, what now you're coming to pick up was always a delivery. Even Mr. Walmart himself had a little red pickup truck. Isn't that right, you Waltons out there? Speak up. Your dad had a little red truck, and he did what he called delivery. He would also do pickup and delivery. He would pick up from people's houses, and he would deliver it to other people's houses. Come on, Mr. Walton, get up out of your grave and go ahead and express the fact of the truth. The reason I'm saying all this is because we have to come to reality now. The world in which we know, believe it or not, Mr. Walton himself did not want any parts of it. And they began to rob him of his stores. Right now in Benton, Woodby, Arkansas, you will find the majority of the stuff coming out of Arkansas. Why? Because Mr. Walton lived close by at one upon a time. And you have to understand, because of that, Mr. Walton had a lot of trips that he took from what we know to be Kansas, or where Texas and Arkansas actually comes to the real root of connecting. And he wasn't afraid to go as far as that. 90 miles out, 90 miles in was all right with him, as long as he was delivering. Now, his children, they would probably disagree with that now, because they all want to be known as real wealthy people who need those people that come by to be servants for them. And they don't want to agree with that. But the day that Mr. Walton died, everyone already knows that by the time they start writing up his will, they had what was backed up as Mercedes and BMW would be shops. They kind of shut down production at the BMW shop, at the Mercedes shop. They shut this shop would be so-called production lines down. Why? Because all the Waltons that went out and found themselves doing nothing more than ordering up these cars. Why? Because as long as Mr. Walton was alive, he didn't allow them to purchase those cars. He didn't allow them to have those cars. He saw it as a status symbol, and he wanted no part of that status nor that symbol. Stay with me. I know they're listening. They can disagree with me if they want to. They just know that I have the true documentation, and they know that if they try to take me to court, I'm going to bring those documents, and they're going to wish they wasn't at that court. That's what will happen to them, because they have to know that all these things have been truly documented. Believe it or not, Mr. Walton was asked to join the secret society. He refused. A lot of you don't know that. So I know a lot of you probably hate Walmart. You probably can hate it now due to the way it's being ran by those that are there. But Mr. Walton would have never, ever in his would-be living life allowed that. He would not have did it. He had very much a love for his customers. Many of his customers, they were melanated, and he had a lot of love for his customers. I don't care what his family says, it's in his record to prove it. He was a fair man. So when they asked him to join the secret society along with Bill Gates and the rest of the would-be so-called bunch, he sat on the side, and he didn't want to have a whole lot to do with any of them. He didn't want his establishment to take on that direction. And they just sort of like kind of wanted to buy it from underneath him. And when he refused to sell it, they were easily able to connect with his wife and his children, those of them that pretty much felt that Mr. Walton was even preventing them from being able to become more successful in life. Stay with me. I'm just calling it like it is. I have to bring truth to everything that we're doing in order that we might be able to reset the entire universe. King Charles, Prince Charles is not resetting anything. He's asking for more funds for himself. That's the only thing he's asking for, a reset. Right now, with him having to move out all of the royal would-be so-called locations, he's asking for more money. He can't get any more money because there's no more dollars to get. So he believes that by him having or putting on those would-be so-called things that we call fundraisers, that he's going to be able to get it through that way. So he kind of invited some very important people from the United States of America. Lionel Richie. I say he needs to stop calling himself Lionel and call himself what we know him by. His name is not Lionel Richie, it's Lionel. Lionel Richard. So all that Lionel Richard, it sounds good when you're around the British family, but it's Lionel in the country. We're going to keep calling you Lionel. And the reason why I'm saying that is not to attack him. I need you to understand that a lot of the melanated people need to be brought back to the reality of the reason why they were able to go out and advance in this life. It was so that they could save their people. Lionel Richard, coming out of Alabama, should know now that even back with the would-be Muskegee, would-be so-called people of the planet, they're still looking for him to become some great would-be individual that they haven't seen yet. And they're not talking about singing. I mean, every day could be easy like Sunday morning, but you would have to be still part of the doors, the Commodores, in order to be able to realize that Sunday morning is easy for anyone when you're waking up to what we deem to be steak and eggs. But when you start waking up to nothing more than a mayonnaise sandwich or even a sugar sandwich or perhaps even some sugar water to put you to sleep at night, nothing more than an IV for an average individual, you must understand that no one has time to be playing games with someone you keep calling royal, which everyone knows that they're only asking you to be their servant, not their friend. So if you want to show up at the would-be so-called King's Palace, wearing a brand new suit and find yourself being mistaken for the butler, you go right ahead. But no one else wants that experience, so you can have it. And listen to me, Katy Perry. Anyone would desire you to be at some taboo party because that's where you need to be at. For the matter of fact, you can just say that they would have had you there before they would have had Cardi B. Cardi B would have done her dance and called it in a day and looked for a paycheck. You got to do your dance, and you got to stay around and hang around to see if one of the royal brothers are going to take you as a wife. Stay with me. God Almighty. You haven't gotten it yet, United States of America. Go ahead. Go ahead. You call it deflammation. You call it whatever you want to. Degradation. You call it whatever you want to. I'm going to call you to the reality of the truth so you can understand that nobody is respecting you. Again, you have been invited because you are considered to be a servant, not a guest. You're a servant, not a guest. Now, meantime, Cinco de Mayo is still smoking. It hasn't left us yet. So we have to remember that these French soldiers that were fighting against the Mexicans or against Mexico, you have to understand that that battle was all to do with the United States of America. Yeah. And right now, you have to understand there's thousands of people, thousands, 470,000, 550,000. Let's just say 500 million people now are standing down on the southern borders. That's off the borders of Mexico and Texas, waiting to get into the United States of America, not because they're coming here because they believe that they're going to find their dreams. They're not coming here because they believe that there's a free land where they can get their freedom. They're not coming here because they believe that the American nation is the last nation they're going to be able to find a $1 bill. I need you to understand, they're down there because they're coming for war. War. Yeah. 500 million people are coming for war. Why? Well, let me just help you out. That 500 million people, I need you to understand that the majority of them, they came from this land. Their mothers, their fathers, their sisters, their brothers, their aunties, their uncles, their cousins, their relatives came from this land, and they're coming home. It's called the Great Exodus. But the Exodus is not going away from home. It's coming back home. Stay with me. You're going to get it in a minute. You're going to realize that those people down there, you're not going to be able to keep them out. United States. You're not going to be able to keep them out because you are the true people from France. You are the true people from Great Britain. You are the true people from Canada. You are the true people from any other nation other than the area that you're in right now. You're here by default. You're here because you were placed in prison here. Believe it or not, your nations in which you left, they're going to be down there on that border too. And they're going to make sure that you don't get out. They're going to destroy you right here on this land. Not only that, they're not just down on the southern border. They're on the northern border too. And not just on the northern border, but they're on the eastern border. And not just only on the eastern border. I need you to take a look around. They're also on the western border. They have you cornered off north, east, south, and west. And I know Brother Mark told you that I've been talking about this in the last few months, the last few years. I need Mark, my brother, to hear something. I started talking about this now 50 years ago, my brother. 50 years ago. I only take credit, as you said, for a little bit of it. I don't need the credit. I don't need the responsibility of those that steadily now calling me names, ugly names, because they can't change the fact that what I'm saying is true. They can't change it. Nothing they can do about it. I can care less how they feel about it. I can tell them I didn't create it. I didn't make it. But I can tell them I'm going to be here when it ends. I can assure them that. I can tell them exactly how it's going to end. I've already told them, we have a date with destiny. Our date with destiny is me being inside the Octagon. The Octagon. Pentagon, Octagon. And there's going to be 4 beasts on the inside. I mean, some mean, evil beast. I got that old giant bear, mean as he can be, tearing, ripping down trees, blood dripping from his teeth, his claws ready to grip whatever he comes into contact with. That old bear is ready to just tear out a wall. But he's only coming from the north, and I'm okay with that. Stay with me, God Almighty. Because I need you to understand that even though he's coming from the north, there's another one coming from the south. The one that's coming from the south, I need you to understand, he is that old would-be leopard. That leopard is mean and nasty. He's going to line the trees coming from that. He's coming from the south. He's going to line the trees down there and just wait until the prey gets weak enough to stumble his way. Then he's going to come out the trees and he's going to rattle the ground with their body. Stay with me. But he's got to meet up with the bear. They got to meet face to face, north and south. But then, coming out of the east, man, that dragon is something wicked. He's wicked. Yes, he is snarling, blowing smoke because his fire is about to be extinguished. Stay with me. You don't understand. You got to get the picture. I'm only giving it to you in bits and pieces. You need to understand what I'm telling you. I'm still in the Octagon. I got the middle. I am the referee. So they all got to come face to face with me. The bear, the leopard, and the dragon. I know what's behind me. You think I'm afraid of him? That old lion, he's got to come out of the west. I know he's combined with a whole lot of nastiness. Man, you should see who he's bringing with him. He's got some jackals. He's got some of them they call nothing more than wolves. He's got those that are with him that they call them hyenas, but they are some nasty things. He got those that he has with him. You need to understand and see the picture of what I'm giving you. They're called wolverines. They're little tiny creatures, but they're all coming with the lion because he is the king of the jungle. He's going to be bringing a whole host of them with him. God Almighty. And they're coming from the west. That's behind me. Stay with me. I'm facing the east because I'm still looking for Yahushua Mashiach's father to come from the east. Stay with me. But I'm going to be in the Octagon. I got to referee all this stuff. Can you imagine? Yeah. And the 4 beasts are going to come face to face. They don't get a choice. I heard that. They don't get a choice. They got to fight. You know how they're going to be fighting? Because I'm going to be throwing dollars up. They want that dollar bill, and I'm going to be throwing it up. But I'm going to keep snatching it down just before they can get it. I'm going to tell them to get it. They got to take it from me. And I'm going to keep throwing it up in the middle of the circle, and I'm going to disappear for a moment and watch them rip each other to shreds. Stay with me. I'm just only giving you a picture. Don't believe it. I guarantee you, you're going to see it. He who has eyes, let him see. He who has ears, let him hear what thus says the word of my Father, YAHALLAH, through the Son's mouth. I guarantee you they're going to fight. They don't get a choice. Well, let's just say, Listen to me, world. You don't fight, you don't get another finance world. How does that sound to you? You don't get another currency world if you don't fight. Listen to me. You don't become successful unless you fight. It's called competition on your level. And all of y'all are competing. Let's get busy. Meantime, let me do us all a favor and take a short break.